Hey everybody. Boy, is it already the 10th meeting? I guess it is. Um, Welcome back. It's good to see folks here in the classroom. Thanks for joining remotely. The majority of our time tonight will be another pair programming activity. For tonight, people can attend here in person or participate remotely. And if anybody wants to, pair up and with someone who is remote, they are free to do so. Figure it out. It'll be a good time. But first, I'll open up for questions. And I think I'll also introduce the Project 4 before we dive into pairing, so I get that out of the way, and that way we can have the rest of the class to do our pairing. So, got some good stuff coming up tonight. Yeah. What can I tell you?
For project two,
Mhm.
well, for project two, we had like our text dumper and text parser classes, and they were like already in our project.
Yes.
For this one, the pre-printer class, is it not already gonna be in there?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so the question was, hey, so far I think pretty much all of the code, all the classes anyway, have been created for you, right? That was just, easy to get started. But in project, and so for project one, you had your project one class and your phone book and your phone call. Sorry, your phone bill and your phone call. And then for project two, your text over and text parser were there. But then in project three, you're asked to create a pretty printer class. And yeah, that one doesn't exist. So yeah, go ahead and create one of those. And of course, any associated unit tests that are necessary, I recommend that, much like your text dumper class, you might want to leverage some of those same techniques for testing your pretty printer so that you can get it all nicely and unit tested. And so then it's easier to, work with on the command line in project three main. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, yeah. How was Project Two? It was due tonight. What y'all thinking? Makes sense for the most part. Saw some good questions and looks like okay. Hopefully, most people got that one. While you're all pairing tonight, I'll run any submissions. I'll run any submissions through the testing script, and if something goes sideways, like oh yeah right, you had the dash text file options printed spelled wrong or something like that, or didn't couldn't parse the command line, I'll let you know. Nice. Yeah.
Is there a straightforward way to test like file permissions using JDBit?
Oh, internet, a straightforward way to test file. What do you mean, like test file permissions? Like, oh, hey, what happens when I don't have permission to read the file?
Yeah, I did the line. I just
Yep.
verified the text over. But then I'm looking at that, I'm like, I don't think I'm
Boy, that'll probably be an integration test type of thing because it really deals with something outside of the program. I guess what you'd have to do is like in your setup, create a file that the user doesn't have permission to read, which I don't even know you can do. I guess you can do that. Yeah, it seems to. Yeah, that's a tough one, I think, to write a test for. So then I think it's just outside the scope of what I'm going to be testing. But if I was doing it for real, yeah. So that might be one where it's too hard or too awkward to automate, and so maybe that just be a manual test case that you run. But that happens sometimes. But yeah, I can't think of I mean, there are Java APIs for creating files and you specify permissions, so probably worth, no more than 25 minutes trying to figure out how to do it. And then if not, just do what you did. Yep, run from the command line and probably it works fine. Yeah, good question. Other topics on people's minds, things that I can tell you, things that you're curious about. See here any chats come in. Nope. That's okay. Cool. Yep, I encourage you to take a quick breather after project two, but then also look at project three, figure out your plan of attack, and get that squared away. Project. I hope hopefully most things in project three seem familiar to you, so you can focus on really the new things there, which are formatting text and formatting dates, using the local date time, things like that. Anything else you want to talk about before we move on to project four? Yeah.
On this week's quiz, there was a question about like what was wrong with the old Java API for time.
Yeah, for dates, yeah.
Could I just hear what your answer would be?
Um, I remember what I had put. Time zones were like super awkward to use. Dates were mutable. Um, yeah, I don't remember the other things. I think there were like maybe one or two more things. It was also those in the lecture. There was a slide on that, I think, and so I was looking for, like there were like five things on the slide, and I'm looking for two or three. Yeah. But yeah, basically. There were some other things. It was mainly time zones. Oh, and just different timing calendar systems. Everything was really kind of disjoint, and it was like it was tolerable, but it wasn't as good as it could be. And so yeah, they improved it a lot. Nice. Okay, take a few minutes to talk about Project 4. So, the content for this week is all about relational databases and Java. How many of you have encountered relational databases before? Some people have. Okay, about half of you. Okay, good. I didn't know if this would be a familiar topic. And by the way, this is brand new content. You are the first people to get this, and this is actually the first. Well, it's been, I don't know, only been a couple of years since I've introduced things, but this is the first like new Java and technical topic that I've introduced in the course in some time. I hope you enjoy it. And also, I apologize if things are confusing or because things haven't been vetted yet. If there's something that doesn't make sense to you or something that doesn't work for you, please let me know because there might actually, be bugs or, things that don't make sense. I do encourage you though to watch the screencast. There's a lot there. My goal here is not to supplant any sort of database course that you might take. This is, very much a broad but shallow discussion of databases with focus on doing Java things with them. I'm guessing in your other courses you probably didn't use Java. And so then for Project 4. What Project 4 does is it, continues to extend your phone bill application, but now you're storing things in a relational database. And this replaces an assignment and a lecture that I did for many years with XML, which I think taught some nice lessons about working with the XML API and parsing XML and things like that. But it was feeling a little dated, and I wanted to do something that yeah, a little bit more interesting, maybe a little, but definitely a lot more relevant. So I hope relational databases fill that need. So, in Project 2, you added the ability to store a phone bill to a flat file on disk of a format of your own choosing. And now in Project 4, you'll also be storing a phone bill, but in a relational database. And we're going to keep it super simple here in terms of the relational database. We're going to use an embedded database called H2. So then it's not like you're going to be running a separate database server that you're talking to. It'll all be handled there in your program. There will be a file, though, that the database is persisted to. So kind of similar to your project two, you'll be reading and writing from a file, but this is a relational database file persisted on, that persists the data on disk instead of a text file of your own choosing. For this project, you'll be implementing a new kind of phone bill dumper called a JDBC dumper. And what a JDBC dumper does is it persists a representation of a phone bill as a relational database. And part of the assignment is I'm specifying the database schema, as this relational as this entity relationship diagram. So you're going to have two tables in your relational database. One is called customers with an ID field, which is an identity, and ID column. That's an identity, and a name column with a varchar of 255 is a primary key. And this notation is explained in the lecture. If you haven't seen it before, but I hope it kind of makes sense in terms of what we're talking about. If not, go back and watch the lecture. And if it still doesn't make sense, please ask me questions because again, this content has never been vetted before. So I don't know said things that make sense to me, but I've learned over the years it doesn't always make sense to everybody else. A customer, so each customer row can be associated with multiple phone calls. So there's also a phone underbar calls table in the database. Each phone call also has an ID, and each phone call also has a caller and a callee, which are all car 9. So basically columns that are characters that are 9 characters wide. There's the customer ID, which is a foreign key off to the row in the customers table. And then you've got a begin and end time that are both JDBC or both SQL date times. So whereas in project two, each of you got to design your own file format, which means that your files aren't compatible with each other, right? I can't take the format from one person's project and put it with another. In project four, I'm specifying what the shape of the data so that, in theory, I could have one of your programs create some rows in a relational database. And then if I shared that relational database with another program, it would read them. I'm not going to do that, but that's sort of the concept here. Yeah.
Files will be arbitrary your own, but the database should be the exact same.
The database will be, sorry, what did you mean by the files would be your own?
Like basically the file format of the phone bill, text file or whatever.
Text file, yeah.
It's going to be the special to our program, whatever we choose.
Yes, whatever you did for project two, right. Don't need to change that. We'll see that you will use the text file here in project four, but that, yeah, and that doesn't change. And so really, I don't think that your text parser and text dumper need to change any. Although, well, in project three, you do go to the 12-hour time, which maybe will change the format of your text file. I don't know. So then so the idea here is that everybody follows the same schema. And because of that, then I can interact with that database outside of your program and get information about it. There's a class called phone bill DAO, which I think a number of you have encountered. A DAO is a data access object. This is a pattern for coding, for referencing, for code that works with relational databases. And what it does is hides a lot of the implementation of interacting with the database, of creating the SQL queries, things like that. So there's a JDBC dumper, which will take a phone bill and persist it in a relational database. There is also a class, you'll also be creating a class called JDBC loader that goes the other way. It is a phone bill parser. And what it does is it'll query an H2 database that conforms to the schema and create a phone bill from that result. So you've got those two classes in your program, and there's also a new class called Converter. So this is another main class. So this has a main method. So there is a project for main that I'll talk about shortly. There's also a converter class. And the whole idea here is that the converter takes one of your text files from project two and converts it and basically takes it in and populates a relational database with that information. And so then it's a very simple program. It takes two arguments. There's the name of the text file and the name of the database file. And so the database, yeah, so it'll read in the contents of the text file and then write that phone bill out to a database file, to an H2 database file. And the idea here is that this code should be really straightforward if you've got everything else. So, try not to overthink it. Or if you're, when you're designing it, when you're doing your POA, it's like, wow, I think I have to do a lot of steps there. Reach out to me and we can talk about, an approach that makes this pretty easy. Okay, there's also a project 4 that builds upon the capabilities of project 3 and then adds the ability to persist a phone bill to an H2 database. So project 4 should have the following command line interface, all the same arguments as you're used to. We're still doing 12-hour times with AM, PM. But now there is a new -db file, and this is the location of the relational database file. So when I invoke the command line, I'll say, oh, great, go use the relational database stored in this file right here to read from. Otherwise, the behavior is the same. You still have the -text file option. And by the way, you can't specify both -text file and -db file at the same time. So the program either interacts with a text file or interacts with a db file. Yeah, I saw you first. Yeah, yeah. Yep. Oh, yeah, right. This is probably new to everybody. I apologize. Right. -class path. Okay. So, and as a matter of fact, do I talk about it down here? I don't. And you know what? I now realize you'll need to put another jar file here. So, okay. Here's the deal. So far, when you've been running programs from the command line, use -jar option. And that invokes, because it's an executable jar, meaning that it has the notion of here's my main class for the jar file. You just run it, and then the main program automatically starts up. And that jar file, there's a question about this on Slack. That jar file contains all of the classes you could possibly need for that project. The Maven build does something called shades the jar. So as we saw in Maven, Maven project has multiple jars associated with it. So there's like JUnit, and let's see here. What's a good example of something? You probably use very little third-party code so far. But the idea here is that you want one jar file that contains all the classes that you need. So the build process actually goes through and takes multiple jar files and glues them all together, shades them all together into one big jar file. And then that's your executable jar. And the executable jar has one and only one main class. And so then that's what's always run. So it's like your project 2 is like your main class there. In Project 4, there are two main classes. There's the converter and there's the Project 4. The Project 4 will continue to be the main class for the phone bill executable jar here. But when you run the converter, you need to specify the fully qualified name of the converter class. And you need to tell it where to load that class from, and that's what the -cp or the -class path option does. Great question. I realize that you haven't seen that before. Thanks for asking about it. Is there another question? No, that was on there. Okay, cool. We can get back to it. Excellent. And I realize there's something missing from this command line. In addition to the phone bill.jar, you'll also need to include something called the database driver, which you'll learn about in the lecture on the class path, because you'll need to interact with the database file. In order to do that, you need the database driver, which tells Java how to interact with the database. So I'll fix that in the assignment. Okay, and again, you got Project 4, which is the main that has this new DB file, and it basically says, hey, here's where the database is, and then you'll use this with your, you'll use this to get a connection to the database and then send it to your DAO. New requirement for this project, note that the phone bill database supports multiple phone bills, right? So in your text file, there was only one phone bill for one customer. And that was enforced by the fact that, like, hey, if you try to add a phone call associated with a different customer that's within the text file, it's an error. Here, nope, that restriction's gone. And that's why here in the database schema, you can have multiple rows in the customers table, each with their own set of phone calls. That's it. Yeah, new requirements coming every day. Those are all of the requirements. Again, if you should have graceful error messages if the commands line's messed up, or hey, if you have a problem, there's a problem accessing the database or whatever, make sure that there is a nice command line. And of course, you'll submit this using submit.sh with Project 4. Yeah. Yep.
Never used H2 before. Is it something where I need to specify where it creates the text file? Or
that's what the -db file is. Yep.
But does it specify it, like, do I need to tell an exact path or keep it in the same directory? Or
it'll take a let's see here. No, you can pass in a relative path, and the database driver will just create the file or access the file relative to the current working directory. Yep, I think that'll work. Yep. And your second question?
Second question was, do I need to download it?
Nope. No, it's a Maven dependency. So, right, yeah. So the nice thing about H2, it's super lightweight. It's an embedded database, just another jar file. Yeah, so it's not like, MySQL or whatever, those kind of, right. Nothing that. Yeah, it has, you can run it as a server and stuff like that. We're not going to do that. Again, this isn't a course in databases. This is a course in just, doing cool stuff with code. And so then it's, again, very shallow, but hope it'll give you enough experience with SQL that, you feel comfortable next time you see it, and enough understanding of how JDBC, the Java API for working with SQL, working with relational databases, work so that you're, comfortable with that too. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Nice. Well, let's keep this one in your pocket right now because I know you're folks, yeah.
Question, this email says we're supposed to store a phone number into an array of 9 characters.
Yeah. Oh, should that be 10?
I mean 10 or 12 for the dashes.
Yeah, no dash is just the number. Let's do. Do you want to store dashes? I don't know. Yeah, because that way you don't have to parse on the way out. Yeah, so it should be 12. Okay.
I'm fine.
Nah, it's just one more thing. You all know how to do that. I think you have to pull it back on the way out and stuff like that. Yeah, no. Thanks. Let's do 12. Yeah, so thank you. No, it's not picky. That is detailed oriented. There you go. I like it. Yeah, I'll fix that too. Yeah. Great. And again, yeah, thanks for asking these kind of questions. This hasn't been vetted yet. So yeah, clearly like there are little things, there might be some big things too. I don't know. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. When in doubt, yeah. Oh, and I guess I don't mention it here. I guess I mentioned in the lecture though. I do have a couple of utilities that I use to just like run arbitrary queries against H2 databases that have been persisted to disk. I'm going to use that. I'm going to use those here so that I can independently verify that yes, the database schema that you use is what I expect, and that you're actually really writing to the file as opposed to just like secretly treating it as a text file underneath the behind the scenes. Wahahaha. Wacky. Cool. I'm really curious about your experience of this with this stuff. And again, thanks for being the first ones to try it out. I'm open to any feedback, and if things go sideways, I'll try my best to support you. Yeah.
Does the H2, do we only run it locally, or should I put it in my git ignore, or?
Again, there is no. It gets downloaded just like another jar. It's there in your local Maven repository. No, these are great questions. Because right, well, and also, yeah, if you've done other things with relational databases, yeah, usually the pattern is like, great, I like run a Docker container or something that has my relational database, or I install it locally on my machine and it's sitting there running in the background. Not this one, not this time, right? So basically, it's like your relational database, and I talk about this in the lecture. It's like the database itself runs inside your Java program, and you execute queries, and it deals with the file and everything like that, and then your program goes away, and so does the embedded database, but the file is still there, and so the next time you start it up, the little database starts up, and it really is a tiny little database, right? So it's yeah, nice, great questions, cool, okay, yeah.
Did we want to have emojis in the name? Those are getting hard to.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. I don't know. I just chose varchar 55 because that's like what everybody chooses for like. I don't know. Yeah, no. I won't be testing with emojis. Yeah, or escape characters or anything like that. Yeah, no non-printable characters in people's names.
Yeah.
Well, okay, that's a good question. SQL injection. I don't know if I'm gonna test that or not. I don't know. That sounds like too much work.
Yeah, we have code for that accidentally, but
How about we create the database first and then you can do it later?
What do you mean? Create the.
Like we haven't even implemented ours was like protection.
Oh, well, I talk about SQL injection in the lecture. And so then, I mean, yes, use prepared statements, I guess. I guess I reserve the right to, try to craft an SQL injection attack. Yeah, right. Yeah, little Timmy drop tables, right? It's the first time that we're doing this. So like, same thing, like my testing scripts will probably not be terribly robust because I'll also be happy if I can like, get it to run and then run my own little utility and stuff against it to do the SQL query. So yeah, again, curious to see how it goes. Nice. Excellent. Okay. And as always, yeah, that's due in 2 weeks. But we'll see how it goes. Okay. So the rest of class is pairing, but anything you want to talk about before we dive into that? Nope. Okay. Our final pairing kata is called lags. So This is kind of a neat little problem. I think it's a more interesting problem domain than the other ones that you've worked with. Requires a little bit more thinking, and this is good. This is on purpose. Okay, so the whole idea is that hey, there's a little there's a little airline company that has one plane, and it can go between various little airports, around a region. And they want to maximize the maximize their how much money they make by running all these routes. And so then you're basically they basically take bids for who wants to go to which city. And so then the whole idea is that the bids and the requests come in, and there are and they come in this format. So the first one is kind of the name of the flight, and then yep, sorry. And then there's the start time just as a number, right? So time 0, time 3, time 5, time 6. And then the duration between the two airports. And then the price that'll be paid. And the whole idea is that you take this as input and you're supposed to find, the best combination of flights that and actually ignore the fact that there might be in different airports. Basically, you want to keep you want to optimize, you want to maximize the time, maximize the number of flights, knowing that you can't be in the air for two flights at the same time. Right. So the whole idea is that, hey, you look for the best, the most advantageous path through here. So for here, you start out with, AF 514 and then go to BA1 because from, time 0 to time 5, you make $10. And then from time 6 to times 9, you make $8. And so you get $18. No other combination is like possible that makes more money. So that's the idea here. Right. And this is about, this is a little logic problem, little, I don't know, it's this traveling salesman. Figure out how to do it, figure out how to optimize it, and go from there. Anything you want to discuss with regards to the kata and the requirements and stuff? Yeah.
So if we have to start, we have the time it takes to 5, right? I'm seeing AF 514 to 0 to 5.
Yep.
Does that mean we can't do AF 515 because we're like, is it included?
No, we could. Yeah. So I mean 0 to 5, then you could do 5 to 9, that equals 17, which isn't as much as this one and that one. So yes, yeah, you're right. Yeah, this is for the sake of keeping it simple, yes, you can, land at 5 and then take off, at 5. It's not much to clean, right? They probably didn't have the biscotti cookies or whatever it is that you get on a plane these days. I don't know. Yeah, good question. Fun little problem. Hope so. So let's see here. In the katas repository, when you pull down the latest changes from the main branch, you'll see that there are now a bunch of lags projects there, and each pair gets their own project, and it's the same thing that you've always seen. So here we have, a lags primary class. It's got the main method, and there's a unit test, and there's an integration test. And so then each pair, can work within there and hopefully not stomp on each other. And let's see here. Oh, and also tonight, since we have people who are remote, let's see how many people we have. Let's see here. We have 9 people who are participating, I guess, including me. So I will create 4 breakout rooms. So pairs 1 through 4 will be the breakout rooms. So I'll go take their cards away here in a moment. And then everybody else who's in the room, it's great to see so many of you in the room. Please, pair up and take the cards starting at 5 and choose a partner, choose a project, and anything else you want to talk about before we get started? Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Oh, did we? I want to make sure the audio. Okay. Excellent. Hey, everybody. So let's take a minute and talk about what the experience was like tonight. Actually, I want to hear first from the people who were remote. I want to hear what it was like to be doing this over Zoom instead of here in the classroom. So can someone who was in one of the breakout rooms just sort of share what your experience is like? What was this different? What was the same? Did you like it more or better? What was more or less? What do you like?
I'd say the one nice thing is about being remote is that when your partner can just share their screen, you don't have to like look over their shoulder or anything. It's kind of nice just being able to look directly in front of you as if you were doing the work, but not really.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
uh, but yeah, I don't know. I think I still like in person more, to be honest. I just wasn't able to make it today.
Yep. Excellent.
I think
Other experience of people remote, yeah.
the actual like mechanics of it were like the same or better even because of like sharing the screen. But it's a lot harder, at least for me personally, to focus on a problem and like really give it your all and think through something when you don't have anyone actually there with you. You're kind
Yeah.
of just like at home staring at your screen, like hearing a disembodied voice. It's a lot harder to like really get in the zone and focus on the problem.
Yeah, good observations. Anybody else remote? Has something they want to share?
I think I can agree with the screen sharing making it easier, but the one difficulty, at least for me, I like to use my hands a lot when I'm explaining things. And obviously, uh, I mean, I wasn't sharing like I wasn't, on Face. I wasn't showing like my video call, so I couldn't really point at things on his screen when he was like when I was the navigator. There was a couple of times where I wanted to point at something on his screen, but I can't. So yeah, I think that was like the only difficulty. But other than that, I think it was the mechanics of it were basically the same.
Nice, good observations. Folks here in the classroom, I think for most of you, almost all of you, it was the third time doing it. Any observations about what it was like, either just doing it the third time about this kata, anything you want to share? Yeah.
Our group wasn't as familiar with the inputs and outputs as we would like to, and there was some other stuff going on, and so each time we would nearly get stuff fixed, the thing would ring, and then we didn't really get a chance to actually work on it.
Oh, right. The 8 minutes is just like, okay,
It's a little-
good to know, right? Yeah, yeah. Nice. Other observations people would like share. Yeah.
I don't know, it's a similar thing that, like, hey, okay, let's take this data and put it in a text file, right, and then read it in. And it's like, okay, I put it on the file system, like, oh, actually, where is this process running? Like, where's, like, that sort of thing, like, okay, maybe we gotta restart stuff. I forgot how to do that, like, there's a bunch of that, like, background information to get to the point.
Yeah.
Thinking we look proud.
Good, yeah, good to know, right? And that's the thing with these katas. We only have, whatever, we probably spend like an hour, on them, and with the 8 minute rotations, that's yeah, it's a lot. But it's good. I don't know. Hope it kind of reinforce things, and in a couple weeks when we do mobbing, I think it'll be a little more familiar. Anything else that people like to share? Yeah,
This is dynamic programming.
it could be dynamic programming. I don't know if like that's really necessary for this, or if there's a best way. It's up to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Maybe. Yeah, probably seems like it.
Yeah, but if you get to the point of actually thinking about how to, the name program, or that great, did better than, you did better than.
Yeah. Well,
Get further than I did.
and I guess another approach is, hey, listen, just like we did with well, like leap years and stuff, we just started with writing the program logic and from a simple unit test, and so like did it really make a difference if you were reading it from a file, or just like here's some text and parsing it that way? I don't know. It's up to you to, the goal here is to experience pairing. I'll let decisions like that be up to you. And so you've learned, what's effective, and maybe one thing you'll try, something that you'll try next time. Yeah.
I have a question about test-driven development stuff.
Yeah.
With like the stuff that we're doing in this kata today, our group found that a lot of the tests that we were about to make were really like integrated tests versus unit tests.
How so?
Uh,
What made them integration test?
like we're testing, creating a writer, making sure that it writes to the file. I mean, I know
okay.
those can be unit tests, but they seem to be
Yeah.
integration like, so I was wondering, in those cases, is it true to keep doing like integration like we're doing, or?
Because all things considered, the integration tests are pretty lightweight. When we start looking at like the REST API project, you'll understand why, heavyweight integration tests. I mean, they take like a lot longer and stuff. So, I think it's really a judgment call. And I think the thing that I'm always on the lookout for is like, hey, does it take me a long time to run my tests? And like, if you lose flow because of your integration test, then maybe taking too long. And it's like, hey, should be using a unit test. But that's it. It's a good question. Nice. Okay. Well, hey, I just wanted to give a quick preview of what we're doing next week. So Monday we're going to be doing more refactoring. We're going to go back to the Gilded Rose kata and focus on it a little bit more. I think we sort of just dipped our toe into it on Monday, and I think there's more stuff that we could be doing. And then on Wednesday we'll start talking about Project 5, which is sort of a quantum leap beyond the first 4 projects. And you'll be creating a new Maven project. I want to introduce you to that. There's a bunch of stuff there. But it's good stuff. And the rest project I think is is very valuable. And then so that's next week. And then the week after that, we're gonna start mob programming. It'll be a lot like what we're doing here, but with mobs. And I'm really curious to hear about your experiences, how they compare and contrast. Awesome. And with that, thanks everybody. Have a great weekend. Stay dry and warm and safe. Have fun with Project 3, and of course, let me know on Slack if there's anything I can tell you. Thanks everybody for joining remotely. Have a good one. I'll see you later.
Thank you.
Bye now.
I think it's for text for program.